I'm the convener of International Chapter of AIOTA, and welcome to second webinar of this year. And to begin with, I'm requesting Dr. Anil Srivastava, President of AIOTA, to welcome everybody and give little kind of speech here. Dr. Srivastava.
Thank you, Dr. Huble. It's my pleasure to be with you all today on the occasion of this webinar being organized by the International Chapter of AIOTA under the leadership of Dr. Vijay Suple, the convener and coordinator of the International Chapter, and his board member, Dr. Karthik Mani, who has taken a lead in organizing this webinar. I say that participation is the key to success. So, first welcome should go to the participants. 300 plus participants, as has been told by Dr. Karthik Mani, that they are attending this webinar. So, I welcome each and every one participants from India and overseas who are registered for this webinar. Thank you very much for registering for this webinar. I emphatically welcome Dr. Vardhan, the key resource faculty, the resource faculty of today's webinar, and the topic that he has selected for his talk is Healthcare Leadership Advocacy, Tips to Reposition OT Practice. Dr. Vardhan has been resource faculty for many of the webinars or the workshops that were All India Occupational Safety Association. Very early on World OT Day, 27th of October, he also was invited to deliver a talk, and he has impressed everybody with his oration and with the topic that he has selected. So I am confident that Dr. Vardhan will do justice with this topic that he has selected and with his oration. Few words about Dr. Vijay Suple. I'm Dr. Vijay Suple. I'm very happy that International Chapter of AIOTA is doing excellent work. Since you have taken over. Earlier, before you, I think you are the second convener. Earlier, Dr. Dasari was the convener of the International Chapter, but I don't remember that any of the activity had been performed under his chair. But you not only are organizing the webinar, but you have coordinated with the overseas OTs, Indian OTs who are working in different countries and taken them under your umbrella. So I sincerely appreciate your good work. I also know of your innovative idea to organize a conference, IOTA conference by International Chapter of AIP in collaboration with the Government Medical College in Nagpur that you have discussed many times with me in the last 2 years. And don't think that this proposal is in vain. It is still under consideration. Next time, I will discuss you personally. Let the COVID thing be over, and naturally, I will try that it should happen. It should happen, and I will try that it should happen under this tenure itself. Because I don't know, I think that this is going to be my last tenure in as the IOTA president. So I really want that International Chapter should come forward, and we will certainly organize the webinar. So I welcome the organizers, Dr. Suple, Dr. Karthik and others, and I give a warm welcome to Dr. Vardhan for today's webinar, and of course, Dean Academic Council of OT, Jyotika Bilani, very active and always enthusiastic to work for the development of academic activities in India and overseas. So I think that is all for that was the given the responsibility was given to me. So hopefully I have done my justice with my responsibility. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Srivastava. And now I'm going to say thanks to my board. Dr. Harsh is one of the board members. Dr. Karthik Mani, Dr. Ghazala, Dr. Shruti, and Dr. Jayashree Chandramouli and Sabari Subramaniam. So this is my team, and we work really hard to bring you to different webinars on the different topics. And I thank my board for that. They are very supportive and very hardworking bunch of people. Now, I would like to introduce today's guest speaker, Dr. Harsh Vardhan. Harsh is a registered health practitioner, occupational therapist, and a public service official in New Zealand. He serves as a program manager for Family and Community Health Services of Ministry of Health. It's a national role to provide management, leadership, and senior advice to support the government priority, informed decision-making, and setting of the ministry strategy directions. Currently, Harsh manages the cross-agency fetal alcohol spectrum disorder action plan for New Zealand. Harsh is a graduate of Nirtar Katak and holds a Master of Management Health Services degree from Massey University in New Zealand. He has over a decade of experience as a clinician, manager, and the leader. After 2 successive terms, he has recently stepped down as a president of National Occupational Therapy Association of New Zealand. He's a board member of International Chapter of AIOTA. Harsh has a special interest in governance, contemporary healthcare leadership, advocacy, disability, including FASD, autism, sensory processing. Harsh enjoys mentoring students also. So I'm really happy that Harsh is a speaker today, and I give mic to Harsh now. Okay, Harsh, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Vijay sir, and thank you, Srivastav sir, Jyotika ma'am. Thank you very much for having me here, and thanks for this generous introduction to all of you. I will try to upload my slides, and so that you are able to see my. Is it visible, Karthik?
Yes.
Is it visible now?
Yes, Harsh.
Yeah, it's
cool. So hopefully you can see my slides now.
Mm-hmm.
And before jumping into the presentation, I would like to say that when I was trying to select this topic, like when I was asked that, do you want to do a presentation, and then I was thinking, what topic should I select? There is a risk in selecting a topic which starts with leadership, right? And a risk is that most of us who, clinicians who work, most of the time we are busy in our lives, and when someone talks about leadership, immediately we think that it is about netagiri, and this is for people who want to be leaders, who want to be out there. And not everyone want to be out there. People have different personalities. Some people want to work without being in limelight. So before I start, I just want to break this notion that leadership is not just about being a superhero, super person kind of person who goes out and talks to people and looks like a big deal everywhere. Leadership is also about leading yourself. So as you will see in this slide where I'm talking about leadership styles, leading yourself is about individually deciding what you want to do in your life, individually deciding where you want to go in your life, individually deciding what you do not want to do in your life. That is also very important. It's about conscious effort which we make to decide what we want to do, and that is leadership. And most of the time it's about leading ourselves, and of course it's also about leading people. So if you are in your workplace, you may not have a formal designation, you may not be the formal manager, people may not always report to you, but you can not naturally emerge as a leader. And there's nothing bad in that. And then sometimes you can go a level up, and that is when you lead organizations, and in today's talk, especially people who have been, in positions of head of department or, at higher level, they would be able to relate themselves with that, leading organizations. But what I want to say is that leadership is not just about, being a super person or a superhero, and anyone can be a leader. You can lead your own life. You do not always need a follower. So in today's seminar, we will be touching all these points. So what does it mean to us as a practitioner? Why do we need leadership in our practice? The second aspect is, when you talk about leadership styles, you can break it into several categories, but I have tried to bunch some similar ones together. And as you will see in the slide, it talks about transactional leadership. Now here I'll give you an example. I used to work in New Delhi, and I was working for a government hospital. And randomly the superintendent of the hospital would come on visit, right? And whenever he came on visit, there was a peon, his chaprasi, who used to come first, and who would go through the hallway, sir aa rahe hain, sir aa rahe hain, sir aa rahe hain, sir aa rahe hain. So he would create a havoc, like someone is coming to inspect, right? Now, what happens is that when you create that havoc, and clearly the leadership style, which used to be in past and still is very much dominant, is master craftsman style of leadership. So the person who is at the top considers himself or herself as a master, and other people are reporting to that person and working for that person. Now, transactional leadership fits quite well with that. Transactional leaders are the one who looks for exceptions, who looks for faults, right? So this person, this superintendent who came to the clinic, and he was looking out at all the equipment, and as a new staff, I was quietly standing next to him, and in a very humble, polite way. And he touched at it was a sanding unit. Some of you would remember, in like one of the ADL units, we used sanding unit, and he touched it like this. I don't know whether you can see my video or not, but still, he touched it, and he showed me his finger. I thought he was asking me, what is this? So I started to explain him, sir, this is sanding unit, and he got more angry, and I was not able to understand what he's saying, right? Anyway, so my assistant, who was standing next to me, said, that he is trying to tell you that why there's dust on this equipment, right? And so basically, he was not interested in sanding unit. He was more interested in the dust on the equipment. And that is what transactional leaders do. They lead by exception. They look for faults. They look where they can pick on things, and then they intervene. They never proactively intervene. Yeah. So I'm giving you just this example to just and to give you an idea of what it is about being a transactional leader or a master craftsman style leader. Now then there is other group of leadership, and I have bunched them all together. It is transformational, authentic, and leadership by network. And I'll give you another example. So this person, again, when I came to New Zealand and after working for a few years, we had a CEO, Chief Executive Officer, and I can name him. His name is Ashley Bloomfield. If you will Google Ashley Bloomfield, he's world known at the moment for some reason. I will come back to it later. So Ashley, why I'm taking his name is that, and why I'm using him as an example of transformational or authentic leadership is, someone nominated me for something, and I had done a very small thing for the department. I think I had cleaned the fridge, which had something rotten in it, and no one had identified it. I looked at the bag and I saw that this needs to be clean and just did it, right? I did not wait for the cleaner to come. I did it myself. So one of my colleagues, I don't know, maybe she liked it, and she nominated me for a weekly. They call it here chocolate fish. So someone will nominate you, and you will get a chocolate fish. A very small thing. It's not a big certificate or anything. It's just a recognition of something you have done for the team. So Ashley, he was the CEO. He came with that chocolate fish, and I was not there. My manager said that you can leave the chocolate fish. I'll deliver it to her. She said, no, I want to come back again. So he came back another day. So he comes back next day, and again I was not there. Now because I was not there because I was in the visit. In those days I used to go on community visit for occupational therapy related work, and so I was getting nervous that this CEO is coming to me every now and then. I'm not there, and I was getting nervous. He would be thinking that, do I ever come to work, or I'm always there out in the community. So he came for the third time. Still, I was not there. So I emailed him and said, Ashley, can I come and meet you? So I went and met him, and we spent some time together, nearly 15, 20 minutes. But the impression Ashley left with me is something which still motivates me. Ashley Bloomfield, anyways, moved on, and now he is the Director General of Health of New Zealand. So that is the highest post in the Ministry of Health. And when I wanted to join the ministry, the motivation was from Ashley, because I was impressed by his transformational leadership. So transformational leaders they will motivate you. They have some kind of charisma in them. They will inspire you. They're intellectually stimulating. You will look at them and see like, oh, I want to be like that person. That person is my role model. A transformational leader may not have always a designation, in an organization. That transformational leader can be your colleague, your senior, sometime your junior, right? Doesn't need to be senior all the time. You can get impressed by even someone who's junior to you. And they have individualized consideration. So taking Ashley's example, he was the CEO. I was just, a clinician working in this big district health board hospital. Ashley's peon never came and said, sir aa rahe hain, sir aa rahe hain, sir aa rahe hain. But still he commands respect. He has authenticity. So if you will Google Ashley Bloomfield, he's all over in the media now, because New Zealand is one of the best, one of the countries in the world. We have handled COVID-19 really well. Life is really normal, even in COVID-19 situation in New Zealand. And it all credit goes to, and of course, teamwork is there, but Ashley is leading from front. And he is authentic, because I remember listening to him when he was doing a presentation, and you will find it on Google, where one of the media person asked him that, when you come for these meetings where you have to face media and you have to give answers about COVID-19, do you feel nervous? And there he talks about, yes, I do get nervous, and how I manage my nervousness, how I manage my mental health. This is called authenticity. And authentic leaders are those who look genuine to people. They do not present themselves as superheroes. They look like natural people, and people can connect to them, right? And while I'm talking this to you, I'm sure you might have come across people in your life who would have influenced you in some way or the other. You may have seen transformational skills in them. You may have seen authenticity in them. Now, leadership by network, and this is where we are going in future. Why leadership by network is important, especially for health professionals and occupational therapists, is we are moving towards a health system which will no more be based on hierarchy. It is going to be a flat system where every individual, every health professional has an equal say. And I'll come back to this again. But before that, I want to touch this another interesting slide. It is about power dynamics. So role power is about power which you command with your position in an organization, right? If someone is head of department, that person has got role power. If someone has is CEO in an organization, that person has role power. And someone is director, or it's about the position, it's about the designation. Then expert power. Most of the clinical people, like clinical practitioners and even academics, their power is in their knowledge, and they use their knowledge to influence things. They use their knowledge to make an impact. But then there is something called connection power, and it is very important for us to know about connection power, because where we are moving towards, the healthcare is moving more towards network, and that is where the next slide talks about that. So I'll just go to the next slide. And so as you can see in that first picture, talking in terms of health system director, I'm talking in an Indian context, right? You have got a director. Most probably that person would be a medical practitioner or a doctor or whatever. And then you will have junior consultants, and then you will have, so there is a hierarchy, and it's everywhere. It's not just in India. In any country around the globe, there is a hierarchy. There will be a consultant, there will be junior consultants, there will be registrars, and then there will be clinicians, therapists. So that hierarchy exists. Where we are heading and where the future of healthcare is going, it is more about network. So in future, it has already started around the globe, and very soon realizing back home in India. And the network, we call it complex adaptive system, and that is where the healthcare is leading. Complex adaptive system is something like, if you see a flock of birds going in the sky, and they move in a pattern, right? And they all are doing their jobs. Every bird is flying. They're not looking at each other, but they are so well coordinated that they are still able to make that pattern and maintain it. Similarly, in health system, we all have a role, whether that person is a medical practitioner or a physiotherapist or occupational therapist. Where we do a mistake is that we tend to think that we are the only one who can make difference, right? And yes, for example, our profession, occupational therapy, it is a great profession. I have no doubt about it. And we have got one of the best research evidence to back up what we do. But so are other professionals too, and so are other professions too. So going forward, how the healthcare is going to be, it will be more like all the professional groups, and not just health professions. And I'll come to this in the next slide, maybe. It's basically the solutions of healthcare lie even outside the health system, and they all have to work together to take this forward. And this slide talks a bit more about power dynamic, and it's basically a new prescription of power. Why I'm talking power more and more is because it relates to how you influence people. It relates to how you influence people around you, how you influence your consumers, and how you are able to drive a change. So it's very important to understand this dynamic. So, we talked about that old master craftsman style of leadership. That is no more relevant. And in today's society, you may have a positional power, that you may be a director or CEO of an organization, but that does not guarantee that you'll be able to drive change, correct? For example, Prime Minister Modi, I do follow Indian media, so I'm quite aware of what's happening this time. And so he wants to build a new parliament, but just prime minister saying that I want to make a new parliament, it's not going to happen. Basically, power dynamic is also situational. You'll have to think about the situation, in which situation you are at the moment. You have to scan the horizons. You have to scan the topography, and then you have to figure out who are my allies, who are going to help me in this change, who are the resistors who are going to resist me. I'll give you an example. When well, New Zealand is a considerably small country, and in terms of uh, one of our neighbors, I will not name the country just to maintain that confidentiality, because I know this is getting recorded and it will go live. So basically, as I said, New Zealand is a small country, and we have got Occupational Therapy Association. At that time, I was president of the association. So we wanted to develop our CPD programs, and we wanted to have collaboration with a big country, and which is quite big, at least 4 or 5 times bigger than New Zealand, even more than that, I would say. And their association is quite big. So we wanted to travel to that country. We wanted to attend their conference so that we can build that relationship, right? So when you talk about situational power, I had some kind of situational power being president of the association, but at the same time, the other side, they were more powerful than us because they were bigger country, big organization, more budget, and so on, right? So situational power was not very much which we could use in that scenario. Then it was about relational power. Relational power is more, you develop that when you interact with people, when you make network, when you go and talk to people and try to understand who are your allies, who can resist you when you want to drive a change. And the change we wanted to drive was, we wanted to motivate that country to share their CPD platform, CPD training and webinar platforms with our members. And why it was challenging? It was challenging was because we also wanted them to open those webinars for our members at a discounted rate, which would be similar to the rate they give to their members, right? So of course, then we had to look at who are our allies. Now, one of the allies we could see was the president of the association, right? I had never met that person, but I knew that that person can be helpful. One of the barriers which we figured out was the CEO. So, president is the governance head, and then CEO is the one who basically does the work. And the CEO was a non-OT, so that person was not an occupational therapist, and had quite an interesting opinion on things. So when we were going in the flight and we were discussing, and our executive director and I, we were sitting next to each other, and Peter is his name, and he says to me that, what do you think, Haj? Do you think we will be able to get from them what we want? And he had a list of things that he wanted from them. So I said to him that, look, it's not about what we want from them. I think they would like to know what we can give to them. And because that is what happens. When you are using relational power, you will have to think about, it's not about what I can take from that person. You have to also think about what is that I have in me, which will motivate that person to have that business transaction with me, or to listen to me, to my ideas, and that is what we did. We had a list of things we wanted to offer to them. We made a list of things. We went there, like we were really doing well in advocacy. So we were having a private practitioner toolkit, which they did not have. And we had those meetings, and we broke a deal there. Anyways, third point is dynamic. So sometimes leaders think that, well, I have influence at workplace, people, they all respect me, I can influence them, I can motivate them to do things which I want to, which I think is good for the team. And it can be, something like a new therapy idea, or a new approach you want to use with your clients. Say for example, autism. If you have got a new therapeutic model which you want to roll out in your clinical practice within the team, you need to influence people, and that is where you use your leadership style, right? And that is, and say if you are successful in rolling that out, sometimes what we forget is the environment is dynamic and things change. So today your team members, they are all happy with what we have suggested. They want to adopt that change, but this may not be like go on forever. After 2, 3, 4 months, the dynamics may change. There would be new players. There will be new resistors. You will have to make new allies to carry on with your influence, right? And why I'm talking more about influence is influence for good, influence to make change, which is going to bring, ultimately going to serve your consumers or your patients. So I think this is, in a nutshell, what I wanted to say is that power does not come just from a position or an authority. Power comes from your relationship with others. It comes with network. It is dynamic. It changes. So continuously, you have to think how you're influencing things. Now, qualities of leadership, and these four qualities, this is something not, it is not my thought at all. So this person, Chai Chua, Chai Chua is, he's former Director General of Health of New Zealand, right? So he is, he has done, he has been one of the transformational leaders, and he has done lots of work. And you can go to his website, actually, you can note it down. He has written many articles, he has written a book. In fact, I was having a conversation with him this morning, and I said to him, Chai, are you happy for me, your thoughts in my presentation? And he was very pleased, because now he's retired. He's around 62 or 63, but he wants to support uh, people, and he wants to share his ideas, and he wants to support people in their leadership journey. And so Chai is quite happy for you if you're attending this webinar. If you want to contact him, and you can just give my reference, or you can say you attended the seminar, he will be happy to connect to you. He's on LinkedIn, and he can talk about, he can carry on this discussion with you. Now, coming back to these four qualities, first quality of the leadership is desire to contribute. Now, I remember, and why I'm sharing this is, I remember 5 or 6 years back, I was, at that time, I wanted to do something. I wanted to bring a change. I wanted to contribute. But I did not know how to do it. So I was talking to all these leaders around me, and one of the leaders, which I could see, was, and this is what happens when you are working as a clinician, your immediate leader you see is your boss, right? You see the head of department, and you go to. So I went to this person and I said, look, I want to contribute, I want to lead, and I want to, make an impact. I'm doing my work with my clients, but I want to create an impact, and so that what I'm doing is not affects only 1 or 2%, but it affects the society at a wider level. So her immediate, question to me was, so what do you want to become? Do you want to become a head of department? Do you want to become director? Do you want to become CEO? And I was not too sure about that, because in my mind, I was not thinking about a position, right? I was thinking about, I have to contribute. So that is the first quality of leadership. And this is thinking, so what do I want to contribute for? For example, as a clinician, you would like to maybe set up a new therapeutic pathway for someone with spinal cord injury, and that can be your leadership. Maybe you want to set up a new transition to school program for children with autism, and that can be something you want to contribute. So it doesn't need to be always related to position. It's also about how do you contribute to make the society better. The second thing is teamwork. And I remember, even when I was working, I was studying in Nirtar. I had, there were few people who always wanted to be the opener, right? So whenever there's a cricket match, they will be the first one to take the bat and wanted to open. Leadership is about teamwork. Sometimes you are at the front, sometimes you're at the back. So you can lead from the front, and sometimes you will need to go at the back. So it's about knowing when you need to be at the front. It's about knowing when you want to be at the back. And these things are very important, right? And I'll give Vijay sir, I will take your example. You are a convener of our international chapter. And I have seen you, your quality is you lead, when it is needed, you're at the front, but then you're also at the back. And a classic example is today, you have got a vast experience but you always, you present yourself in a humble way. And for example, this talk, you could have done this talk, but you wanted to give me this opportunity to go at front and do it for you. So that is what leadership is about. It's not always being in front. You will have to always change your position. Minimal ego. Now, ego is something which, it can kill people, really. And I remember when, as a leader, if you want to lead the society, lead a team, or even lead yourself, you will have to compromise with your ego. And I remember there was a time, at that time, I was not working for the Ministry of Health here. I was in the association, and I was president of the association, and we were advocating for a cause. And what was happening is that children with disability, the government funding system was too tough for children in comparison to adults. So for example, if you wanted a wheelchair cushion for a child, you had to do a whole lot of paperwork in comparison to an adult. And of course, there were own rationales. They said that it is too expensive for children. You have to customize things, so it costs more. So that's why we. Anyway, so at that time, I was, as an advocate, in touch with some officials in the Ministry of Health, right? And I went to talk to this person, and of course, they changed some of the rules, not all the rules. We were able to influence them to change some of the rules. But then I met this official in some other meeting, and I approached her and said, "Hi, how are you?" But when she replied to me, it was a very rude reply. She did not even offer her hand. She just said to me, "Oh, I know you. We have met before." And so it was a very bland and a very rude reply. And that is what you have to always keep in mind. When you are a leader, you will have to keep your ego out of the door. And Srivastav sir, I know, you are one of those leaders who have, like you have led occupational therapists for years. And I'm sure you would be able to relate to it. When you are a leader, there are times you have to compromise your ego, and you will come across people who will try to bog you down, but leadership is about, sometimes you have to just do it. So when you're making decisions, it's not about you're making decisions just for your ego. You're making decisions also for the benefit of others. Courage is very important, right? And it can be, well, I'll go back to my student days, because my guru is here today, Mukasi sir, and I'm glad, for as a student, it's a big day for me, because when you feel proud that when your teacher, is there attending a webinar, and someone you have always looked high to. And I'll try to give, and sorry, Mukai sir, I won't make you feel embarrassed, but still I want to give you this example, because as I was saying, leadership is not just about leading a team or a country or an organization. It's about personal leadership. So when I first time got in OT, in occupational therapy, first year was full of frustration, right? So I basically ran away, and I wanted to reappear for medical entrance. And so 3 months or 4 months, I was not even doing classes. And then, of course, I could not clear the medical entrance exam. And then I was thinking, how do I go back, right? And all these thoughts are in my mind, were in my mind. Should I go back? What will teachers think? And they will think that I'm. But anyway, I gathered courage and I went to see you, Mukasi sir, if you remember. And sir asked me, where were you? Right. So I said, well, I was preparing for medical entrance. And then sir said, so why you're back? I said, well, I'm back because I just want to be back. And he said, oh, will you go again next year for the exam? I said, no. Then he said, why not? And I was like, yes, because at that point I had made a decision that I'm not going back. I want to be an occupational therapist. And that was the honest decision which I had made. And I said to him, and the great thing was that he trusted me. And then actually he said that, okay, you have to write an application. And I said, what do I write, sir? And he said, well, you think about what you want to write. Because you want to write something you want to write in the application. You cannot say that you are preparing for medical entrance, right? So anyways, I will not go further than that, but I stayed and he showed trust in me. And that was a decision and I think that was one of the most courageous decisions which I made in my life. And the decision was, no matter what happens, I'm not going back to sit for medical entrance because I'm in. And this is the courage. Why I'm giving this example today is that I have seen sometimes students, they fail to take this courageous decision. Throughout their career as an occupational therapist student, they keep thinking, oh, we are in wrong profession, we should leave it. If you want to leave it, leave it. Once you're in, you are in. And have the courage to carry yourself, lead through it, and then look for ways in which you can progress. And of course, in coming slides, I'll get to it. Another example of courage is, as a leader, sometimes you have to do is, now I was doing a submission to a select committee in a parliament. And basically the submission was, and there is a link to that submission at the end of one of the slides, takes you to that link. Now, the submission was basically about that schools in New Zealand do not have enough support for children and young people with autism, dyspraxia, and dyslexia. So that is the submission I was making. At the time, this person was in the government, one of the cabinet ministers, and she has got a reputation of being quite strict. She used to manage a very tough portfolio back then. She looked at me in a very interesting way and says, so, and that is all. When you are advocating, when you are leading, people will sometimes intimidate you, and she looked at me and says, so you are saying that government is not giving enough support to these children. So I looked back into her eyes. Now, I'm not trying to say that I'm a super person. I was not scared. I was scared. I was anxious. My heart was beating high. My feet were trembling. And I was feeling like I'm flying in the air, because here is a cabinet minister sitting opposite to you, and she is questioning you in a very threatening way. But that is about leadership. You have to have courage. Having courage does not mean that you are fearless. You will still have fear. Anxiety and fear is natural. So when you go and appear in an exam, in an interview, and your heart starts beating and your feet starts trembling, that is natural. So leaders do not need to be supernatural. But courage is, in spite of those fears, in spite of those anxieties, how can you manage that to lead? So at that time, when this cabinet minister was questioning me, though I was very scared, I did not make it come on my face. I looked in her eyes and said, yes, that is what I said, minister. And that's it. And there was a silence. And nothing happened after that. Right. So these four qualities: desire to contribute, teamwork, minimal ego, and courage. Something to keep in mind. Now, this diagram, I don't know when you look at this whether you are able to relate it to something or not. You know, think about an idea you had in your team. Maybe as a student, you thought about something, maybe doing a freshers party, or doing a farewell party, or you had an idea and you wanted to influence people. And then you will have people at different stages when you want to influence change. Initially, when you put an idea forward, there will be a denial, right? Then there will be a fear. There will be resistance, anger, depression. Then people start to explore, and then acceptance and commitment comes. It happens everywhere, right? It happens in personal life. You know, 10 years back, and I'm giving my personal example here. When I first time I went to see my would-be father-in-law, and that was again a courageous decision to do that. And I wanted to ask a hand of his daughter for marriage, and all these things happen at the time. So it's not just about leadership in an organization; it's about in a personal life. You might experience all these things happen. You have an idea in your mind. It's not that when you talk about that idea, immediately people will jump up and say, "Yay, we want to do it." People go through that phase, and it's okay. Leadership is about understanding that people will not accept all your ideas all of a sudden. They need time. Leadership is about being empathetic, so that when people are going through that journey, you are working alongside that person through that journey for acceptance. So I remember in our district health board when I was leading a program back then, and that program was called Choosing Wisely. And of course, in the coming slides, I will talk more about it. So one of the projects in the program was related to concussion in emergency department. Now we wanted the doctors, the physicians in the emergency department to use a specific tool to screen for concussion. What we had discovered is when there was a new patient coming to the emergency department, they used to do all sorts of assessment, but they were not doing a screening for concussion. And concussion, as you know, it may be invisible. So if you are hitting into a car at the speed of 100 kilometers per hour, you may have visible broken bones, but you may have invisible injury inside your head, which is difficult to see. So we wanted these doctors to use that screening tool. First time I went into the department, they looked at the tool, and they said immediately, no, we are not using it. We don't have time. They denied to even look at the tool. And then we had to work. It took us around 1 year to go through that cycle and to go through that phase of, so initial it was denial, no, it doesn't work. Then there was a resistance, a group of doctors saying, no way we are using it. And then they started to explore. They started to explore that, okay, we cannot do it. Can we ask a nurse to do it? Can we ask some other professional to do it? And then gradually there was an acceptance, and ultimately they were able to use that tool. They employed a specialist nurse who was using that tool with all these patients. So I would say keep that diagram in your mind, because you can apply it even in small scale. You can apply it at a larger scale. Now, this slide, this is about exponential growth and linear response. Now, there is a story, uh, and this story is about a king who goes to Lord Krishna. Sorry, Lord Krishna goes to this king as in disguise. So this king did not know that this person is Lord Krishna, right? So he goes there and he says, okay, so I've come to you and what you can offer to me. And king said, look, I have got heaps of money. Just tell me what you want. You know, I can give you gold coin and this and that. So Lord Krishna said, well, how many gold coins you have got? And said, heaps. Just tell me how much you want. So Lord Krishna said, okay, so what I want you to do is that there are 64 squares in a chessboard. Okay, 64 squares. I don't play chess, just to let you know. I'm not a great chess player, just using an example. So he said that, okay, so you have to, so if you put one coin in the first square, in the next one, you have to make it exponential. So 2. The next one, you have to make square root of 2, square root of 4. So you keep on going. And the king thought, oh, it's as simple as that. And he agreed to it. But when he finally, the amount which came, so that is called exponential growth, you know, and exponential growth is quite real. Kodak is a camera company. We all know the name, and I'm sure you might have used Kodak camera in past. Now, first time the developers of digital camera, they had approached Kodak. And in those days, there were films. You could, you know, you had special kind of films. And of course, then you had to wait for all those 36 or 37 photos to be clicked, and then you go to the developer, and then you. But now you all know in your phone you can make a click and you take a picture, and you can make yourself really look smart, slimmer, and everything you can do, right? So Kodak had got an offer for someone who had come up with this idea of digital camera, and at the time, the developers of Kodak, the management, the board of directors of Kodak said, this is rubbish. We already have got a strong market. We don't need you guys. So they were thrown out the door. So coming back to this diagram. So this is again made by Chai. Remember, the former Director General of Health. And he has sketched it by himself. So after retirement, he's doing lots of sketches, right? And this is one of the sketches he has made. And he used COVID-19 as an example. So when there is an exponential growth, as you look into this graph, x-axis is the time frame, y-axis is the change. In the initial few years, there is a deception stage. You do not see that change is happening. It's not visible. You are still working in your linear way, but that there comes a point that is called tipping point, and that is where Kodak comes. It is also called Kodak moment, right? You remember that advertisement Kodak used to have, Kodak moment. Now, Kodak moment it's about, that is the time when Kodak got offered to take that technology of digital camera. They missed that opportunity, right? They missed it. They thought it's useless. And then after that, the market of digital camera grew exponentially. Kodak was having linear response. So they were not creating new market, basically. They're trying to sustain their market. They thought that they will always rule. Nokia phone, they thought they will always rule the market of phones, right? They were thrown out by BlackBerry, and BlackBerry were thrown out by iPhone, and iPhone, who knows, someone will throw them out too. So the point I'm trying to say is that change is exponential. Especially this diagram talks about COVID-19. Before COVID-19, if you talk to people about these concepts, they will say that it is useless, you know, it will never happen in healthcare. It happened with Kodak, it will happen. COVID-19 has taught the world that disruptions can be exponential. So COVID-19 is a disruption, right? Disruption can be good or bad. disruption made by a digital camera was a good disruption actually. It gave society a tool where you can click your photo, you can send it to your family and friends, and heaps of things you can do on it, right? So the point here is, if you are facing exponential challenges, linear response is not going to work. So if you're thinking your private practice is going really great at the moment, and there are no competitors in the market, you are the best private provider in the world, in your locality at least, you know, you may be thrown out by someone who is in the deception stage. You have not noticed that person. I'll come to that. I'll come in the next slide. So it's always being aware of what is happening and the potential of exponential disruption and how you are going to tackle it. Here I go to the next slide. As occupational therapists, as health professional, we get taught to think in a linear way most of the time, and we think A leads to B leads to D. That is how we think. I remember as a student, I went in a Viva, and where you get grilled, you get asked questions. So I got a case study of Volkmann's ischemic contracture. Now, the name itself was too hard to remember. The other thing hard to remember was to know all the nerves and muscles in your hand, and which contract, and you know about Volkmann's ischemic contracture, right? So anyways, I was asked, so which muscles get impacted? So I said the names. Which nerves get impacted? So I was able to tell the names. And then I was asked, so what do you think? First the nerves get impacted, or first the muscles get impacted? And then, so you see, that is how we think. We go in a linear way. We always think that the world works in a linear way, and that is how most of the health professionals get trained. Include not only OT, I'm saying, it is, any health profession. We think mostly in the linear way. Where we are heading in future, where the health system is heading, it's called systems-based approach, systems thinking. And as you can see in the diagram, systems thinking is not always A leads to B and B leads to C and C leads to D. World doesn't work like that. It's a complicated system, as I said earlier, complex adaptive system. So instead of wasting time on whether nerve got affected or the muscle got affected, it would be more useful if we think about this patient who came to us today. Did he eat this morning? Where did he sleep? Which hotel is he staying in? Has he got enough money? If not, where he is bringing money from? If he has got enough money, what else we can provide to him? Is he going to work, or he's not going to work? Has he got children? If he has got children, what is the impact of his disability on children? So it is way more complex than just A to B to C to D. So that is the point I'm trying to say, is problems in health, they are not linear, they are exponential. And if you want to tackle them, it's about systems thinking, and that is where we are heading, right? Now, I want to give example of this program because this is the program which I'm leading at the moment for the Ministry of Health in New Zealand, right? And so this is about fetal alcohol spectrum disorder action plan, and we are doing things, but at the same time we are working along with, it's not only the Ministry of Health who are working, but we have got that systems approach where we are working with Ministry of Education, Ministry of Justice for Children, that is remand home, corrections, that is prison, New Zealand Police, health promotion agencies. A number of agencies are coming together and working and trying to create solutions for these children and young people and people affected by fetal alcohol. So fetal alcohol is basically when mothers drink alcohol, babies are born with some kind of head injury, which may not be visible, but then of course it presents and it impacts your life right from when you're young to when you're adult. So this is one example which I wanted to give about how you work in a systems approach. So going back to the slide, I will not skip it. I just wanted to give a context of your practice. So as a private practitioner, for example, if you're working in your city, you have to think about what other things you are doing. Where are you collaborating with other people? Are you collaborating with schools? Are you collaborating with who maybe recreational places? Are you collaborating with local government? So you have to think about all these things. Another way to deal with dual transformation is thinking about, sorry, another way to deal with exponential change is the concept of dual transformation. So dual transformation says, for example, there are things we do which makes good services better. So when you are in the transformation A place, for example, if you have got a clinic and you think to have a new assessment tool, maybe you want to use SIPT, a sensory integration and praxis test, right? And you get that test. After a few months, you feel like, no, I should also have ADOS, that is autism diagnostic test. And then after a few years, you realize, no, we should have Griffiths for developmental assessment. So you are making good services better. And that is, you are transforming today, you are strengthening today, you are sustaining in the market. Remember, you're not creating new markets, right? But dual transformation approach says that when you are strengthening today, at the same time, you should be creating tomorrow. So basically, one group of your team or your business or your private practice is working on today, but this other group is trying to create tomorrow. And what will be tomorrow? Tomorrow is more about the new markets which you can use. And a classic example is of Singapore Post. You know, in 2000, between 2000 and 2010, most of the postal agencies around the world, they really struggled, and many lost businesses. And in New Zealand, for example, you know, they used to deliver letters every day. Now they do it only 3 days a week because they cannot afford. Not many people are using letters these days. But Singapore Post flourished. You know why? Because they sensed that an exponential disruption is going to take place, and that exponential disruption was due to internet, due to emails. Way ahead, back in early 90s, they realized that internet has come in existence. In future, people are not going to use us. So what should we do? At that time itself, they created a different arm, and that is where Transformation B is. So Transformation B team starts looking for, so okay, so what new services I can provide, what new markets I can create. And they decided that, okay, we will not just deliver letters and parcels, we will also provide operational services. In business term, they call it logistics. So we will buy product. We will not just be carriers of products, but we will buy products. We will transport them from one part of Singapore or world to the other part. So here comes 2010. Most of the postal agencies around the world lost their business. Singapore Post flourished because at the right time they were able to create tomorrow. Right. This is one example. Similarly, Netflix. Now, Blockbuster is a company which was very popular, you know, in Western world, and used to go and video cassettes and all. If you remember VCR and VCP days, when you go and buy video cassettes or you rent a video cassette. So Blockbusters were having very big market at that time. Netflix had approached Blockbuster and said, look, you guys are doing really well. Do you want to have our idea? And Netflix had come up with an idea that they will actually deliver these video cassettes. There'll be home delivery of video cassettes, right? So they wanted to do home delivery. And Blockbuster said, rubbish, we don't believe in it. We already have got established business. People come to us. Why will go door to door to deliver? Anyways, they did not buy Netflix. And you see what has happened. Blockbuster, no one knows them now. They're out of the market. Netflix have got trillions of dollars of market. Netflix have, until now, until recently, they were just, in entertainment, and they were still using, the movies and serials produced by others. But now they are producing their own movies. And who knows, after 10 years, you will see Netflix will be in a totally new space. They might be doing real estate, they might be doing web development. Similarly, Amazon, if you take example of Amazon, they started with selling of services and products on online platforms. And now transformation B is on your Facebook, you might be getting those advertisements about Amazon Web Services. So the point why I'm discussing it here, if you're thinking that why I'm talking about these companies, is now you have to think, where are you in terms of your practice? Where are you in terms of your clinic, your business? Are you in the transformation A stage? Where are you going in future? Is there any potential exponential growth which is going to happen in future? COVID-19 is one of the things. What other things can happen in future? Now, I don't know whether you are aware or not, but 3 big companies, Amazon and JP Morgan and Berkshire, these 3 big companies have joined hand together, and they want to target the well-being market. So a totally new product. So they're not talking about we are going to provide services to people who are sick. They're talking about we want to provide services for health and well-being. Especially after COVID-19, you will see that the focus will be more on well-being. So it's not about providing health services to people who are sick, but also to people who want to be healthy. And now these companies, and you know who is the CEO of that company? His name is Atul Gawande. I would really encourage you to go and Google Atul Gawande. Dr. Atul Gawande is he's from Maharashtra, and he's based in US, and he is a very well-known physician. He has written a book called Being Mortal. And if you like reading books, please go and read it. He talks about elderly care and the future of elderly care and how that impacted his father. And end of life care. And Ghazala ma'am, you might have heard about him, and you have done lots of work and end of life care. So yeah, if you get time, read about Atul Gawande. And Atul Gawande has been appointed as the CEO of this team of 3 companies, and they are going to design a platform, a health platform, which would be targeting on well-being. The name is Haven, Haven. The website is not very well developed, but they are doing work. They'll be able to. So again, coming back to you. So what are you thinking about future? I was thinking about a few things which, look, I cannot give a cookbook answer to what you should be doing. But have you thought about the parents who come to see you with your children, because you have got lots of influence with them? Where do they go on holidays? What is about their well-being? Where do they live? Where do they want their children to live when they grow up? Who will care for the children when there will be no more? What about their siblings? What well-being services you can provide to their family? And services, the transformation B, which I'm talking about, is not only about health. You have to think about services outside health, and it can be totally new thing. Singer is the company who used to make sewing machines. And what happened is that people no more sew at home. We all buy ready-made garments. They realized at the right time, so they created another team who were working on tomorrow while they were still profiting on today, and that team was preparing medical equipment. So look, this company who was preparing sewing machine, they are into medical equipment. One of the leading medical equipment provider in the world is Singer. So think about not just about health, think about what other things you can do, how you will reposition your business. And capability link is, while you are still working to make good services better, at the same time you are creating tomorrow. And once you have created your tomorrow, gradually that tomorrow becomes your today. So you start working on the edges, right? On the fringes, the edges. If you get some success, you scale it, and gradually, who knows, you will not be working with autism, you will not be working with cerebral palsy, because you will be looking for wider market. You will be working for big firms, you will be working for well-being provision to corporates, you will be working for well-being of children in big schools. So widen your horizon, think about future. If you will not do it, someone else will do it, because disruption will happen, and that is what history has taught us. Correct. Coming back to choosing wisely, and this is again, as clinicians, we think that evidence-based practice is something we have to do, and yes, we have to do. Evidence-based is really important. Where we are heading to the future. So health services has grown with time and developed with time. We started with in early 20s and 30s when the concept was anything you provide free of cost is the best health service. But then we came, a time came when it was about, we started to talk about sanitation and how personal hygiene and maintaining cleanliness and all that in society is going to prevent diseases. So we started to talk about prevention. And then we started to talk about evidence-based practice in 90s, and nursing was one of the first professions who talked about them. And then we started to talk about how to do more with less, lean management principles and all. Now the future we are going to is talking about what does our customer value. So I gave this example last time, and this is again not my example. Sir Moo Gray, he is at the Ghazala Ma'am, you would know him. He is based in UK, a Center for Evidence-Based Medicine, and his talk is really powerful. He talks about, like, say, one person goes to the surgeon and says, I want to have my knees replaced. The surgeon says that, okay, why do you want your knees to be replaced? And he says, look, I've got osteoarthritis and I want to do gardening. I cannot squat because for gardening I need to squat. Well, there is lots of evidence that you can change the knee. One of my friends who is an orthopedic surgeon in New Delhi, he says if you'll throw a stone in New Delhi, it will definitely land on an orthopedic surgeon who does knee replacement. So everyone does knee replacement. There's a strong evidence that you can replace knee. But here comes the point. The doctor says to the patient, now do you realize, Mr. So-and-so, if I operate your knee, you will never be able to squat. He said, no, I didn't know that. Yes, with a replaced knee, you will never be able to squat. So maybe what that person did, he went to someone like you and me, and they were able to raise their planting bed, or we call planter, or a pot, a raised height. You can stand and do gardening rather than squatting. So though there was an evidence that surgery works, but that was not serving the purpose, that was not meeting the value of the customer or the consumer, what they wanted. So when you are practicing, you have to think about not just about evidence-based, you have to think about what does my consumer want. Now the consumer wants you to help the child in transition to school, but you start to talk about sensory integration therapy and it's not going to match. You have to somehow work. You have to work on both the ways. Yes, you will do sensory integration therapy or your therapy, but at the same time you have to look at how is that going to help in transition to school. So you have to look at what values to the customer, and this is what is about choosing wisely. There is lots of evidence to do things, but just having evidence does not matter. And this is just an example from I was involved in this choosing wisely movement. This is an international movement, and we did lots of work. You can go online and look for more information on choosing wisely, what it is. The point which I really wanted to touch, and I know we have got limited time. I started a bit late, so I will take additional 10 minutes if that is okay to cover. So, again, as clinicians, as researchers, why we get frustrated. We think that why do government make decisions in a way which they make, they will pay attention to only one thing at a time. Why they do not pay attention to other things? So you would be thinking, why are they not interested in making occupational therapy council, right? Or you'll be thinking, why Mr. Prime Minister is having interest all of a sudden in making the parliament, a new parliament building, or why he wants to make reforms in agriculture. So decision making as clinicians, what we have learned as occupational therapists or health professionals, we think in a rational way. We think that decision making is always a rational process, but it is not. Kingdon is a person. First time I came to know about him when I was doing my master's study, and I was reading about a policy. It was a paper related to health policy, and it was night, and I did my master's quite late, and usually when we have got a child at home and you're so busy, you get to time to read at night, and I was half asleep. Right? I was half asleep, and I was going through this paper about Kingdon, and suddenly I started to read about why do decision makers pay attention to one thing rather than the other, and immediately I was all awake because this was so interesting. Coincidentally, next day, I was in a clinic with a pediatrician. Now, this pediatrician happens to be, at the time, he was chief advisor for the Minister of Health for child health. Right. So at that time, I was not working for the ministry. He was, though. So during our discussion, he said, we talked about decision making, and he was talking about his own frustration, how things happen. And he said, Harsh, have you heard about garbage can? And I said, yes, I was reading about it last night, actually. So garbage can model and decision making in government department is not very different from this. So it's like the model says it's like a black box. In black box, you provide problems, you provide solutions, and then there are decision makers. And people really don't know what's happened inside the box, and suddenly a decision gets made. So this was a concept, this was given by Cohen, March, and Oslin. But actually, Kingdon, J.W. Kingdon is his name, and he said that, well, it is a black box, but still we can, provide some more information on what happens. We know at least something about what happens in decision making. So he said, so what is a problem? Problem is something, there are conditions, there are issues, but problem is when a government decides to pay attention to one condition at a time, and that goes on its agenda. For example, COVID-19, that is all of a sudden on the government agenda at the time, right? So when you think about Kingdon stream model, there is something called political stream. So political stream has nothing to do with problem, nothing to do with solution. Any political party, when they come in power, they have their own manifesto, they have their own agenda, and they will do it because they have promised to people to do it. And also they may have their own personal agenda. So Prime Minister Modi, I'm taking his example again, because I'm trying to talk in Indian context. For him, well-being is a big thing. He likes yoga. So yoga is in his agenda. So that is a political stream. It has nothing to do with whether yoga works or not works. It has nothing to do with will yoga solve all the health problems or not. It is because there is a personal interest there. And the philosophy of the government, the political party, aligns more with yoga. So they are promoting it, right? Now, the other stream is problem stream. The problem stream can be impacted by, say, a disaster or a crisis. And COVID-19 is a classic example for that, right? And so problems, if a problem has come on government's agenda, for example, COVID-19, or Parliament building, it was there for years, right? And it is quite old. It is not like it has become old all of a sudden in a month. But it has become a problem because now it is on government agenda. Before that, it was a condition. So the building was in bad condition, but now the building has become a problem because it is on the government agenda. Allied health bill, it was a condition. There was a condition that allied health was not regulated in India. Suddenly it has become a problem because now it is on government's radar, on their agenda. Occupational Therapy Council, it is a condition, but it is not a problem yet for the government because it is not on their agenda. So political stream, problem stream. Okay. Going back to politics stream, in politics stream, some are visible participants. So public servants, you see their media or politicians, and then there are hidden participants like specialists, academics, researchers. Now, a few months back, last month, Ministry of Health in India, they were doing a consultation on assistive technology, right? Now, of course, Minister of Health is visible, but the person who was chairing that review committee was not visible. He was a hidden participant. His name is Dr. R.K. Srivastava. Not like someone R.K. Srivastava. He's in Ministry of Health in India, and he is leading it. No one knows about him, but he is chairing that. So they are hidden participants and they are visible participants, right? So being aware of that. Now, policy stream. Policy stream is more about solutions. So people have their solutions. So as an occupational therapist, you will have a solution that in COVID-19, we can help people in their mental health being. We can help children with disability to cope with the demands of COVID-19 or the online demands on the students. So what happens is that all these streams run separate to each other. They are rarely interconnected. Politicians, they have got their own thoughts. They work in that way. Problems, they will come on agenda depending on whether there is an urgency or many other factors. And policy stream is solution. People keep going around with their solution. So now that I work for the ministry, I can see people in policy circle like researchers, academics. You will get emails from them. They will talk about the research they have done. They want to promote that. They want the government to pay attention to that. But that's not going to help. There is always a policy window, or we call a window of opportunity that comes. You'll have to, as an advocate, if you want to promote yourself. So usually what we think as clinicians and researchers, we think that if we do research, if we create great evidence, government is going to listen to us and do things for us. It doesn't work that way. Right. Research is important, but then you'll have to look for window of opportunities. The event, that particular time, that is where you need to promote. So you have to keep looking for the problem. Once the problem is on agenda, then you have to match your solution with that problem. So at the moment, problem is COVID-19, and you have your solution ready, you keep promoting your solutions, right? Government talks about well-being, you have your solutions ready, you keep injecting your well-being solution there. So decision making is not a rational process. It's quite a complex process, but you have, if you are aware of all these complexity and how you have to use that window of opportunity, then it's going to help. If you don't understand this dynamic, it is going to frustrate you. Now, people say that I know in India, OT council is something people want, but this council is, remember we talked about, it is dynamic. If you think a council will be established and you'll have all the solutions forever, it's not going to happen. In my view, if you want council to come on the problem list of the government or on the agenda of the government, you join the policy stream there. You go with your solutions. Instead of going to the government saying we want a council, you target each and every government department, health department, ministers, and also section officers, also these public servants, and they do not need to be always IS officers. You can go to section officers and clerks and other people who are easily approachable sometimes, and try to influence their decisions. Try to see where do they make policy. Can I input in that policy? Once you go in that policy circle gradually, then you can move the attention towards, okay, this is, then they will start recognizing you as a profession, and then you can influence decisions. And once that window of opportunity comes, you will be able to get through. So, of course, advocacy, and this has been one of my interests. Some of the articles are there, some of the links are there. You can go and read about it. And for example, this one, more doing, not just talking therapy is needed in mental health. And this is a media release which we made because the government were reviewing mental health services, and they did they made emphasis on psychology. So there was a window for us to go and advocate and say it's not just about talking therapies, it's about doing therapy. So you have to look for those window of opportunities when you can advocate yourself. And this media release was done when the who is the current Prime Minister Ardern, she was campaigning for her first election, and she was talking about mental health in schools. So that was a window for us. We knew that this is on government's agenda, and that was the time we made a media release supporting her view, saying, yes, Ms. Ardern, you are correct. There is a mental health need, and occupational therapy funding should be improved for that. She came in power. We wrote a letter to her attaching this media release and said, you remember we were doing media release, and then we started to work together with the government. So this is how it works. You will have to link your work. If we were just relying on our research work, oh, we have got research, it works in schools, and government will read our. No one reads those journals. People sometimes they don't care what is there. It's about what is there in that policy circle in that time.
I'm on the webinar.
And who is able to connect.
I'm on the webinar,
so
okay?
there are other things, and this is my presentation on the future of healthcare and platform revolution. I will not go into the detail of it. There is a link to my presentation. I would encourage you to go and see if you are interested to know more about that. You're most welcome. And I know I don't want to take more of your time. It's I think 60 minutes now, so I'll just stop there, and happy to take questions. Thank you.
Okay, then I will go sit somewhere in another room.
All right, everyone. If you want to ask a question, please go ahead and unmute yourself and ask the question. Or if you want to post your question in the chat box, please do so. Harsh, just please keep your eyes in the chat box as well, and I will also let you know if I see some questions. For the interest of time, we'll plan to take maybe 2 or 3 questions. So feel free to ask your questions to Dr. Harshvardhan. And if you have more questions, feel free to email him. Harsh, would you like to put your email in the chat box as well, just in case?
Okay, I'll just type it there. Yeah, thank you.
The recording of this webinar will be available on the International Chapter's website, maybe, a week or so. And Vijay, sir, do you want to take over? We don't really see any questions. You want to just kind of move forward with the meeting?
Okay, yeah, I'm on. Okay. Thanks, Harsh. It was a really nice presentation. And I'm going to hand over mic to Mrs. Billani Madam, and she is going to give her vote of thanks.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Firstly, my sincere thanks to Dr. Vijay Supple and other board members for giving me this opportunity to conclude this academic event organized by International Branch of IOTA in collaboration with Academic Council of OT, and which is part of All India Occupational Therapists Association. Let me first congratulate Dr. Vijay Supple, who is a convener of International Branch of IOTA, and other board members for giving me this opportunity. And also they have taken such a great initiative of organizing these series of webinars. It's really a good initiative, I should say. And I'm very thankful to you for having such webinars. On behalf of IOTA and International Branch of IOTA, I thank Dr. Harshvardhan, who is our speaker and who really delivered an interesting lecture on healthcare leadership and strategic advocacy, the tips to reposition OT practice in occupational therapy. He has really made the participant understand the different leadership styles, and I'm sure this will encourage all our participants to explore their power, actually, which may be OT knowledge or on research knowledge or a good interactive abilities, which he said are so important, which maybe they are hidden within ourselves, and definitely they will. These powers will help us to influence people and motivate them and become actually a true leader in a positive way. Yes, you need a minimum courage, what he said, even though you may be a little fearful, but yes, you need a courage to do that, leaving your ego behind. I love that, Dr. Harshvardhan. It was in a simple, sweet manner with examples. Too motivating lecture and too motivating, your way of presentation is too good, and which I have been always appreciate that. So I really appreciate today's lecture also. Let me thank all the participants actually for attending this webinar in such a large number and making this webinar a great success. Lastly, my special votes to Dr. President, Sir Dr. Anil Srivastava, and all my executives of IOTA, Accord, ICAIOTA for their timely guidance and support to conduct such important activities. Thank you all. Thank you again, Dr. Harshvardhan and Dr. Supple, Dr. Karthik Mani, this Ghazala is, I heard she's also sitting there, and our HOD of, I think now he's retired, everyone, whomsoever has attended, my colleagues, my teachers, thank you all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we're okay now, Karthik?
Yeah, so all right then, thanks everyone. I'm going to start recording, and you may leave the meeting. Thank you.
Okay,
thank you,
have
nice officials. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Good presentation, Harsh. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.